Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're going to completely upend the conventional wisdom of financial planning. If you've ever sat down to look at your retirement accounts, you've probably been told that your only job is to chase the absolute best returns, right? And that the deeper implications of where your money actually goes, well, that's something you can safely ignore. But what if that foundational assumption is just completely flawed? Today, we are looking at the moral weight of capital through the lens of Catholic social teaching.
You hear this phrase constantly in financial circles. Investing is just math. It's a convenient little mantra, honestly, designed to shut down deeper conversations before they even start. The basic assumption here is that you just put your money wherever the returns are. You diversify, you rebalance, repeat. The actual morality of what your capital is doing out there in the real world, well, that's treated as someone else's problem. Maybe a philosopher's or a priest's, but definitely not yours. But is it really just math?
Well, the Catholic Church has a really stark and direct response to that position, and it's totally uncompromising. That premise, it is entirely wrong. According to this framework, every single dollar you invest carries a moral vector. Your money is out there right now, literally moving the world either closer to human flourishing or pushing it further away. There's no magical third option where your capital just sits entirely outside the moral order, quietly compounding in the background. So the question isn't whether your portfolio has a moral dimension. The question is simply whether or not you are paying attention to it.
To understand how to actually pay attention, we have to look at a vital but honestly largely unknown document from the Vatican. Published in 2022, it's called 𝗺cie 𝗿𝗹𝘆, that's Latin for good measure, which is drawn directly from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 6. This document is monumental. It establishes a global framework for faith-consistent investing, and its opening premise is definitely not a mere suggestion. It insists that investing is an ethically weighted act, meaning every allocation of capital is a moral choice.
Now, 𝗺cie 𝗿𝗹𝘆 doesn't just exist in a vacuum. It sits right alongside the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops' Socially Responsible Investment Guidelines. Those were most recently updated in 2021 to address modern technologies, complex supply chains, and environmental realities that, frankly, the original 1991 version just couldn't have foreseen. Guiding billions in Catholic institutional assets, these documents together form the Church's most comprehensive institutional answer on exactly how capital should be deployed. Yet, remarkably, most Catholics sitting across from a financial advisor today have absolutely no idea either of these documents even exist.
Okay, let's dive into this, because the popular shorthand for Catholic investing is usually just negative screening. Basically, just don't buy the bad stuff. But treating that as the whole framework produces a kind of moral minimalism. The actual framework is a robust three-part model. First, avoid, staying away from intrinsic moral violations. Second, engage, taking on active ownership to improve companies. And third, build, directing capital to create positive impact and promote what the Church calls integral ecology. Let's look a bit closer at that second demand, engage. This is where Catholic investing gets so much more demanding than just a simple screen. Contrast divestment with active ownership. Divesting or boycotting gets you out of the room, but active ownership, that keeps you in the room. Catholic institutions will actually hold shares in companies with problematic practices, specifically to gain access to proxy votes and direct dialogues with executives. It's about applying sustained pressure regarding huge issues like exploitative labor or child safety. Section, the 5 pillars, the 2021 𝗺cie𝗂𝘶 policy areas. Now, what's really interesting about this is that the sheer breadth of these interconnected pillars usually completely surprises people. Let's walk through exactly how they apply to Catholic portfolios. Pillar 1 is protecting human life. This is the area with the most rigid, uncompromising standards. Companies that are directly involved in abortion services, embryonic stem cell research, or the manufacture of weapons designed for mass civilian casualties face mandatory exclusion. For Catholic investors following this guidance, these are hard lines. There's absolutely no proportionate reason analysis here. The Church's position is completely unambiguous. You simply do not own them. Moving right along to Pillar 2, we have promoting human dignity. Now, this covers a much wider range of issues, things like human trafficking, pornography, discrimination, and predatory lending. Because these issues often pop up at the margins of otherwise legitimate businesses, rather than being their core product, the approach here is more graduated. It relies on specific revenue thresholds and heavy engagement strategies alongside outright screening to push those companies toward better behavior. Pillar 3 is enhancing the common good. This is where shareholder advocacy really does the heavy lifting. This pillar addresses media responsibility, access to healthcare, and corporate governance. Catholic investors use their position here to push back against unfair executive compensation structures. Think massive executive bonuses during widespread layoffs, and they demand transparency in corporate practices that directly affect local communities. Pillar 4, pursuing economic justice, puts labor squarely at the center of the conversation. This demands active corporate governance focused on living wages, supply chain accountability, and the treatment of workers in overseas manufacturing. It also takes a super strong stand against modern usury. By that, I mean wealth-extracting financial products like payday loans that just exploit vulnerable people. Again, investors here aren't passive index holders. They are active participants demanding justice. And finally, Pillar 5 is care for creation. Often called the Laudato Si pillar, this represents perhaps the most significant expansion in that 2021 update. Environmental stewardship is a massive priority here. This dictates divestment from thermal coal and high-carbon extractors that lack solid transition plans, while intentionally directing capital to fund renewable energy, water technology, and circular economies. Section: The Fiduciary Duty Objection, Navigating the Pushback.
Naturally, bringing this comprehensive framework to a standard financial professional is going to invite some skepticism. The most common pushback relies on the classic Milton Friedman view: maximize returns at all costs. Any moral criteria, the argument goes, is a total betrayal of your fiduciary duty. So the crucial point is contrasting that with the Catholic social teaching view, which states that economic life is never exempt from moral evaluation. Pope Benedict XVI addressed this perfectly in his encyclical 𝗺cie 𝗿𝗹𝘆, arguing that the pursuit of justice in the marketplace isn't a distraction at all. It is an essential part of the Christian vocation. There are two major problems with that maximize returns at all costs objection. First is the empirical problem. Companies with labor violations or environmental liabilities carry hidden long-term risks. Screening for ethical supply chains actually acts as a fantastic risk management tool. Second is the theological problem. Capital simply does not operate in a separate moral universe. In the Catholic framework, wealth ultimately belongs to God, and how we use it matters immensely. And this brilliantly illustrates the core philosophy of this entire approach. Investors are stewards, not owners. When you view yourself as a steward of the resources you've been given, you realize that stewardship carries a profound responsibility. It's a responsibility that simply cannot be outsourced to some automated benchmark indexed or a generic mutual fund that doesn't care what it funds. Section: The Individual Action Plan, applying the framework to your portfolio. We've talked a lot about institutional endowments, diocesan assets and huge hospital systems, but this framework applies directly to your 401k, your IRA, and your taxable brokerage account. Today, implementing this is way more accessible than you might think. There are values-aligned mutual funds and ETFs across all major asset classes now. Financial advisors who understand the 𝗺cie framework can absolutely build portfolios that express these exact values. And here's the secret: you don't need a perfect starting point. You just need to begin the process of aligning your capital with your conscience. Which leaves us with the ultimate question. The Catholic Church has built a comprehensive, actionable framework for ethical investing. It exists. It's ready. So, are you going to use it? According to this teaching, your money is never morally neutral. The framework is right there, but the choice of what your capital does next, well, that is entirely up to you.